All right, good morning. Let's come to order and go on the record, please. I'm Charlotte Mitchell, Chair of the Utilities Commission, and with me this morning are Commissioners Kimberly Duffley and Jeff Hughes. I now call for hearing docket number W-1125 sub 9 in the matter of complaint of Greater Kinnakeet Shores Homeowners Association, Inc. against Outer Banks Kinnakeet Associates, LLC, as well as docket number W-1125 sub 10 in the matter of complaint of Kashif Ain against Outer Banks Kinnakeet Associates, LLC. I'll refer to Greater Kinnakeet Shores Homeowners Incorporated as the HOA, and I'll refer to Outer Banks Kinnakeet Associates, LLC as the utility. Before we proceed further, as is required by the State Government Ethics Act, I remind members of the Commission of our duty to avoid conflicts of interest and inquire at this time as to whether any commissioner has a known conflict with respect to matters coming before us. The record will reflect that no conflicts have been identified, so we'll proceed. As to the complaint filed by the HOA, on December 13th, 2021, the HOA filed a complaint in docket number W-1125 sub 9 against the utility, alleging operational deficiencies with the Kinnakeet Shores Wastewater Treatment Plant and requesting that the Commission require comprehensive due diligence investigation into the utility's suitability to own and operate the wastewater treatment plant and collection system, require the utility to take immediate steps to rectify the deficiencies, appoint an emergency operator if it determines that such action is necessary, revoke the utility's bond if it's determined that the utility is unwilling or unable to operate the system in accordance with the public convenience and necessity, investigate the possibility of identifying a potential new owner of the wastewater treatment plant, and if the Commission determines that the utility should continue to own and operate the system, require a substantial increase in the utility's bond. On January 27th, 2022, the utility filed its first answer to the HOA's complaint. Also, on January 27th, 2022, the utility filed a motion to strike certain allegations from the complaint. On February 3rd, 2022, the HOA filed a response to the motion to strike. On February 4th, 2022, the utility filed a reply to the HOA's response to the motion to strike. Also, on February 4th, 2022, the utility filed a motion to dismiss the HOA's complaint for lack of standing and jurisdiction. On February 7th, 2022, the HOA filed a reply to the utility's first answer requesting a hearing. On February 11th, 2022, the HOA filed a response to the utility's motion to dismiss. And on March 11th, 2022, the owners of 59 lots within the Kinnakeet Shores subdivision filed a joint petition to intervene. And on May 23rd, 2022, the Commission issued an order granting that intervention. On April 28th, 2022, Counsel of Record for the utility filed a motion to withdraw, which motion was allowed by order of the Commission. On May 12th, 2022, Deborah Ash and Jonathan Farrell, owners of lots 16, 19, 26, and 20 of Phase 16 of the Kinnakeet Shores subdivision, filed a petition to intervene. The Commission issued an order granting that petition on May 23rd, 2022. On May 12th, 2022, Wilton and Manette Britt, owners of a home at 41-196 Windlass Court and a vacant lot at 41-148 Portside Drive, located within the Kinnakeet Shores subdivision, filed a petition to intervene. On May 23rd, 2022, the Commission issued an order granting that petition. On May 12th, 2022, 7 members of the Board of Directors of the Kinnakeet Shores Homeowners Association filed a joint petition to intervene as representatives of all members of the complainant HOA. 6 of the board members also requested to intervene as current customers of the utility. On May 23rd, 2022, the Commission issued an order granting that petition. On June 12th, 2022, Marie and Stephen Minton, owners of a home at 41-198 Spirit Sale Court within the Kinnakeet Shores subdivision, filed a petition to intervene. And on June 15th, 2022, the Commission issued an order granting that petition. On June 23rd, 2022, the Commission issued an order granting in part and denying in part the utility's motion to strike and allowing the utility until July 8th, 2022 to respond to the remaining allegations in the HOA's complaint. On July 7th, Attorney Kurt Olson filed a notice of appearance in this docket as counsel of record for the utility. On July 7th, the Commission issued an order extending the utility's time to respond to July 12th. On July 12th, the utility filed its second answer to the HOA's complaint. Also on July 12th, Attorney Kurt Olson filed a motion to withdraw as counsel of record. for the utility, which motion was allowed by subsequent order of the commission. On July 20th, 22, Attorney Patrick Buffkin filed a notice of appearance as counsel of record for the utility in this docket. Turning to the complaint filed by Mr. Ain. On January 18th, 2022, Mr. Ain filed a complaint in docket number W-1125, sub 10, against the utility, alleging that the utility's failure to operate and maintain the wastewater treatment plant and proper working order resulted in a moratorium that prevented his wife and him from obtaining a building permit. On February 3rd, 2022, the utility filed an answer to Mr. Ain's complaint. On February 14th, 2022, Mr. Ain filed a reply to the utility's answer in which he requested a hearing. On April 28th, 2022, counsel of record for the utility filed a motion to withdraw, which motion was allowed by order of the commission. By order of the commission issued June 28th, 2022, docket number W-1125 sub 10 was consolidated with docket number W-11 sub 9 and set the matter for hearing today. All right, that brings us to today. I now call on counsel for the parties to announce their appearances for the record, beginning with the utility.
Good morning, Chair Mitchell, Commissioner Hughes, Commissioner Duffley. I'm Patrick Buffkin of the Buffkin Law Office, appearing on behalf of the defendant respondent, Outer Banks Kinnakeet Associates, LLC.
Good morning, Mr. Buffkin. All right.
May it please the commission, my name is Edward Finley, Raleigh, North Carolina, appearing on behalf of the complainant, Greater Kinnakeet Shores Homeowners, Inc.
Good morning, Mr. Finley.
Good morning, Elizabeth Culpepper with public staff, appearing on behalf of the using and consuming public.
Good morning, Ms. Culpepper. All right. Before we proceed any further, preliminary matters.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have two for the commission's consideration. First, there have been two filings in this docket this morning with the commission. The first is an affidavit of Mr. Ray E. Hollowell, the managing member of the utility, and the second is a memorandum to the commission regarding the hearing from Mr. Hollowell. The memorandum speaks for itself and tends to provide some additional context for the matters stated in the affidavit, and I think that is sufficient to inform the commission of the latest developments. And unless the commission has any questions, I would just ask that those filings be noted for the record.
By filings, you're referring to the letter filed today and the affidavit filed also this morning?
Yes, ma'am.
Any objections to the motion?
As long as noted doesn't mean entered into evidence, because we would oppose the affidavit being entered into.
All right, all right, thank you, Ms. Culpepper. Mr. Buffkin, will you clarify what your motion is?
Yes, Madam Chair, and a brief word of context. The memorandum tends to contradict or call into question some of the statements that are made in the affidavit. I feel obligated as an officer of the court to bring that to your attention. But with the memorandum having been filed, I think that speaks for itself and tends to provide the context and corrections to any statements in the affidavit that might no longer be true. And again, it was simply to ask that the commission take note of those filings, to have that stated on the record, which I believe is my obligation to this tribunal.
All right.
So to be clear, we're not asking it to be entered into evidence, only that it be noted in the record in this hearing that those filings were made, and the contents of the memorandum provide a relevant context and tend to correct any statements in the affidavit that may no longer be true.
All right, thank you, Mr. Buffkin. Ms. Culpepper.
It's fine as long as it's not entered into evidence.
All right.
We were served with the affidavit this morning at 7:22, so it was not in compliance with GS 6268.
All right. All right. Thank you, Ms. Culpepper. Mr. Buffkin, the commission takes note of those filings.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And the second matter, this is also addressed in the memorandum from Mr. Hollowell to the commission that was filed this morning. Under Under circumstances of, that are spoken to in the Rules of Professional Conduct, Rule 1.16A, Paragraph 3, I would move that the commission allow me to withdraw from representing the utility in this proceeding.
All right, thank you, Mr. Buffkin. Before ruling on your motion, I want to be clear as to my ruling on your first motion. We are not accepting those documents into the record, but we are taking note of them as you have asked us to do. We are not accepting those documents into the record of evidence in this proceeding as of today, but we are taking note of them as you have accepted us to do. All right, as to your motion to withdraw, any objections to the motion? Motion is allowed. Thank you, Mr. Buffkin.
Thank you.
All right. We are going to go ahead and proceed today, notwithstanding withdrawal of counsel of record for the utility. This is how I'd like to proceed. We'll begin with the HOA and allow the HOA to put on its evidence. And then I'd like to hear from the public staff. We'll start with the HOA's complaint, and then we'll proceed to Mr. Ain to the extent that Mr. Ain is here and desires to put on evidence.
I don't think he's coming.
Okay, so with that said, we'll proceed with you, Mr. Finley, your clients, and then Ms. Culpepper. Notwithstanding withdrawal of counsel of record for the utility and notwithstanding the fact that Mr. Ain did not appear today, I would like the public staff to proceed with any evidence it has as to the matters alleged in these complaints. And pertaining to the commission's direction to the utility to show cause provided in the June 28 order.
Yes, ma'am.
To the extent that any intervener in this proceeding wishes to provide evidence, they will be allowed a chance to do so too. Mr. Finley, recognizing you do not represent the interveners, is it your understanding that the interveners do not wish to present evidence?
That's my understanding.
Okay. All right, let me just check in the audience to see if there are any interveners here present that wish to present evidence today. All right, I am not seeing any. All right. You all are very familiar with the proceeding before the commission. You will have an opportunity to cross-examine witnesses and engage in redirect examination if necessary. Witnesses will also take questions from commissioners. If commissioners have questions, and you all will be allowed to ask questions on commissioners' questions. All right, let me check in one last time before we get started, just to see if there's any additional procedural issues we need to cover. Okay. All right, Mr. Finley.
The HOA calls Patricia Weston to the stand, please. Ms. Weston, if you will come up here and sit in one of these chairs, and you'll have to take that Bible there and be sworn in by the chair. That's fine, I think.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. All right, good morning, Ms. Weston. Go ahead and pull that microphone close to you so that we can hear you. And then let me get you sworn in, please.
Is that okay?
Yes, that's good. We can hear
Is
you.
that loud enough?
Yes, it is. If you would, ma'am, put your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand and do you swear the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, thank you, Mr. Finley. You may proceed.
Will you state your name and address for the record, please, ma'am?
Pat Weston, P.O. Box 853, Avon, North Carolina, 27915.
Ms. Weston, what role did you play on behalf of the complainant, Greater Kinnakeet Shores Homeowners, Inc., in this matter?
I've served as the president of Greater Kinnakeet Shores Homeowners, Inc. since the year 2000.
And are you familiar with the complaint filed on behalf of the Homeowners Association in this docket, and what role did you play in gathering and reciting the information set forth in the complaint?
I am familiar with the complaint, and I verified the factual allegations set forth in it. On behalf of my board and with the assistance of our attorney, I compiled the information set forth in the complaint and obtained approval from the board to file the complaint with the commission. The HOA is an official agency that acts for and on behalf of the property owners and utility consumers within the Kinnakeet Shores the Kinnakeet Shores subdivision in Dare County. The board viewed the wastewater collection and treatment system in Kinnakeet Shores to be in critical need of remediation and sought help from regulators to rectify the problems as quickly as possible.
Do the covenants and bylaws and other empowering documents of the homeowners association authorize the board to file the complaint on the homeowners association's behalf?
Yes, sir. The provisions of this document authorizing the filing of a complaint are addressed at length in the response to OBKA's motion to dismiss filed earlier in this docket.
Ms. Weston, please describe in general terms the Kinnakeet Shores service area provided wastewater service by Outer Banks Kinnicket Associates, Inc.
Presently, Kinnakeet Shores consists of 379 home sites, 177 homes, and 202 vacant lots. Of the 202 vacant lots, at the time of the filing of the complaint, more than a dozen owners and contractors had begun the process leading up to obtaining building permits for construction immediately or by the 1st of 2022.
Please address the level of development in Kinnakeet Shores and the role played by OBKA in influencing that development.
As recited in the complaint, the period ending 2021 had been one of exceptional growth in the real estate market within the Outer Banks in general and Kinnakeet Shores in particular. Continuation of this growth is important to the HOA and its constituents. During an 11-month period in 2021, Kinnakeet Shores recorded 48 property sales in the phases served by the OBKA, or more than double the sales and transfers of property in any previous year. Prior to 2021, lot owners within Kinnakeet Shores were on the verge of submitting plans to obtain building permits to build new residences. Some of these lot owners had already sold their former residences in anticipation that no obstacle existed preventing construction of their new homes. Taking advantage of potential growth in Kinnakeet Shores is an important objective of our board and its constituents. This growth also provides income for related providers of water and electric services, county taxes, and occupancy tax for rental properties. OBKA is the sole provider of sewer service. Without access to the sewer service, the building of homes cannot take place.
Please describe in summary fashion the services OBKA provides to Kinnakeet Shores.
OBKA provides wastewater collection and treatment services to Kinnakeet Shores service area pursuant to a certificate of public convenience and necessity issued by this commission and a permit issued by the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, permit number WQ002393484.
What is the status of the permit to OBKA from the Division of Water Resources?
By letter dated August 25th, 2021, the Division of Water Resources, Water Quality Regional Operations Section placed OBKA on moratorium effective October 13th, 2021.
What impact has the moratorium had on the residents and homeowners within Kinnakeet Shores?
The imposition of this moratorium has resulted in a crippling effect on Kinnakeet Shores' current economy and future economic prospects, and severely frustrates the predetermined plans of property owners and builders. This is frustrated by the letter filed in this docket.
This is illustrated, I think you want to say. This is illustrated instead of frustrated.
I'm sorry,
It is illustrated by.
am I in the right place?
Yeah,
Okay.
but you said frustrated, you meant illustrated. I
Oh,
think.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Illustrated by the letter filed in this docket by George E. Goodrich of Otter Point Joint Venture, where he states, several other builders find themselves in the same position as my company. We cannot move forward with our development plans for our properties until the moratorium is lifted. Dare County will experience a loss of tax revenue and income from tourists, the primary business of Dare County, until the situation is rectified.
Please summarize findings set forth in the moratorium addressing deficiencies within OBKA treatment and collection system.
In its letter to OBKA, DEQ states that the wastewater treatment plant major treatment units are no longer functional, Both clarifiers, the tertiary filter, spray irrigation system, and backup generator are not functional. Biosolids have not been removed from the plant for at least 7 years. DEQ has placed the wastewater treatment plant on sewer moratorium with no new sewer taps, sewer extensions, or additional flow effective as of the date of this moratorium.
Is the moratorium still in effect today?
Yes, sir, it is.
Please state whether the conditions of the OBKA system are those arising in the recent past leading up to the imposition of the moratorium order.
From my recent inquiries and evidenced by the numerous notices of violations, the conditions of the wastewater treatment plant which resulted in the imposition of the moratorium arise from years of neglect and failures of OBKA to undertake appropriate maintenance and to adequately fund operations of the system. OBKA contracts with an operations service that makes do as best it is able with the limited funds available to it provided by OBKA. I am in frequent communication with those who provide the operations service. While OBKA's acts and omissions to date have not resulted in appreciable disruptions of wastewater collection services to existing connections, in my opinion, unless major and immediate steps are taken to address the deficiencies noted by DEQ, service disruptions can be expected at any time. DEQ's letter imposing the moratorium required notice to be sent to OBKA's Kinnakeet Shores consumers. This notification and the perceived threat have caused and continue to cause substantial distrust and anxiety among users of OBKA's services within Kinnakeet Shores.
To your knowledge, what has been the response of OBKA to the moratorium and the conditions resulting in its imposition?
As of today, the moratorium remains in place. Consequently, OBKA's actions have not been taken satisfactory to DEQ in order to have the moratorium lifted. OBKA's general rates have not been adjusted since initially approved in 1999 to 2000. The principal owner of OBKA is Ray Hollowell Jr., a former real estate developer of Kinnakeet Shores. On past occasions, Mr. Hollowell has informed the members of the board that he lacks appropriate financial resources to make the needed repairs and improvements.
What is the board's view on efforts that might be taken by OBKA to obtain rate levels enabling OBKA to provide adequate service?
The board is not opposed to paying a reasonable rate for wastewater utility services, but in exchange for the payment of reasonable rates, customers should be entitled to adequate service and assurances of appropriate improvements and maintenance to the wastewater collection and treatment systems.
Has the board, and to your knowledge, have Kinnicket residents been in communication with the public staff and the Division of Water Quality in an effort to obtain assistance in support of addressing its concerns with OBKA?
Yes, sir. I personally, and through our attorney of record, and on behalf of the board, as well as other residents and property owners, have been in communication with the public staff and the Division of Water Quality in an effort to obtain assistance and support in addressing its concerns with OBKA.
Have the latest events leading to the imposition of the moratorium been isolated instances of difficulties OBKA has experienced?
No, sir. We have reviewed the Commission's files dating back to 1999 and attempted to list examples that, in our opinion, demonstrated failure to comply with the responsibilities of a public utility in this state. The only allegation the Commission allows us to address has to do with a report by the public staff addressing the general level of OBKA's rates that have been in effect since the franchise was granted in 2000. The public staff reported that due to personal moves, at least one hurricane, financial records had been moved a couple of times over the years and were not easily located. From its reviews of the tax returns, the public staff noted reported losses in 2008 of $631,920, for 2009 of $414,388, for 2010 of $450,369, and for 2011 of $513,064. The bulk of these losses related to utility operations. Without requesting copies of invoices, the public staff was unable to determine the rate base of OBKA.
Have the board's communications and interactions with OBKA been satisfactory?
No, sir, they have not.
In addition to the complaint filed by the board in this docket, there have been a number of requests for intervention filed by other Kinnakeet Shores property owners and customers or potential customers. Are you familiar with the situations of those who have filed these additional requests for intervention?
Yes, sir. I have been in communication with the other individuals and property owners and have coordinated with them in the filing of their request for intervention, in which they have implored the commission to provide relief within Kinnakeet Shores in an expedited fashion. The purpose of these requested interventions was to reiterate to the commission the severe difficulties existing within Kinnakeet Shores and to attempt to impress upon the commission the need to act expeditiously.
Can you refer to a particular example?
Yes. I refer to the petition to intervene filed on March 11th, 2022 by Themi Velsistas, Charles and Michelle Higgins, Jamie Majerski, Mark Roberts, Joe Roberts, Rick Bartow, and Pat Weston, and on behalf of a multitude of other property owners listed in that petition. In paragraph 7, the petition stated, petitioners concur with complainant that consumers of respondent are in immediate need of the commission's assistance in assessing the deficiencies outlined in the complaint. Petitioners understand that even though the complaint requesting immediate action from the commission has been pending for some time and motions from respondent have been filed and responded to, no action by the commission thus far has taken place. By their request to intervene, petitioners seek to impress upon the commission the urgent need for action and relief.
Subsequent to the filing of the complaint by the board, are you aware of other actions taken on behalf of regulators to address the wastewater treatment and collection system within Kinnakeet Shores?
Yes, sir. My understanding is that the North Carolina Attorney General's Office, on behalf of DEQ, has filed a complaint in the Dare County Superior Court seeking an injunction against OBKA. The complaint was filed on May 5th, 2022 as case number 22 CVS 177. In its claim for relief, the complaint states, as of the date of the complaint, defendant has failed to correct violations in the treatment and disposal system and in the collection system, including but not limited to failing to properly maintain and operate the wastewater treatment plant, failing to properly maintain and operate the reclaimed water generation and utilization facilities, failing to properly monitor and report results of treatment wastewater effluent exceeding effluent limitations, failing to provide a permit modification addressing outstanding property issues, and failing to maintain the collection system in accordance with its permit. Defendant's failure to correct these violations constitute continuing violations of the treatment and disposal system permit and collection system permit. The current state of the treatment and disposal system and the collection system presents a current and ongoing threat that wastewater discharged into the collection system will not be adequately treated and disposed of in violation of NC General Statutes subsections 143-215.1, paragraph A2. The continuing threat adversely affects the public interest as described in NC General Statute subsection 143-221. The state is entitled to preliminary and permanent injunctive relief against defendant to abate the ongoing violations and prevent the threatened violations set forth in this complaint. My understanding is that the public staff will address this complaint in greater detail in its testimony.
Madam Chair, copies have been made of this complaint that has been filed in the Dare County's Superior Court. And the public staff has compiled an index of it and has put on page numbers of this exhibit. It has been distributed this morning. And we would move that this complaint and motion for injunctive relief be marked for identification as Homeowners Association Exhibit Number 1.
All right, Mr. Finley, the document will be so marked for identification purposes.
Ms. Weston, have you been in communication with other providers of wastewater utility services that might express an interest in acquiring the wastewater system from OBKA and providing service within the Kinnakeet shores?
Yes, sir, I have. Desperate to find a solution to the serious dilemma in which we have found ourselves, I have attempted to identify alternative service providers to explore the possibility that a sale or acquisition might provide a long-term remedy.
All right, please recite again what the HOA is requesting the commission to do in response to your complaint.
Greater Kinnakeet Shores Homeowners, Inc. respectfully request that the commission grant the following relief. Number one, that the commission is, as expeditiously as possible, require a comprehensive due diligence investigation into OBKA's suitability to own and operate the wastewater treatment system and collection system in compliance with the public interest. Number two, that the commission, in coordination with the public staff and the Department of Environmental Quality, require OBKA to take immediate steps to rectify the deficiencies causing the imposition of the moratorium. Three, that the commission, if after investigation and due diligence, should determine that OBKA is incapable financially or operationally or otherwise to continue to operate the system, appoint an emergency operator. Four, that the commission, to the extent that OBKA is unwilling or unable to operate the system in accordance with the public convenience and necessity, revoke OBKA's bond. Five, that the commission investigate the possibility of identifying a potential new owner of the Kinnakeet Shores wastewater treatment system that is willing to acquire and operate the system on terms that would not result in unreasonable rates to its ratepayers. Six, that to the extent the commission determines that OBKA should continue to own and operate the system, that the commission require a substantial increase in OBKA's bond to be forfeited and revoked in the event OBKA's pattern of inadequate service is repeated in the future. Six, for such other relief as the commission deems appropriate.
Thank you, Ms. Weston. Ms. Weston is available for cross-examination.
All right, Ms. Culpepper.
No questions.
All right, let's thank you, Ms. Weston, for your testimony. Let me check in with my colleagues to see if there are questions for you. Questions for Ms. Weston. All right, Ms. Weston, I do have a few questions for you. Thank you again, ma'am, for your testimony this morning. You have provided a lot of information in your testimony, and I want to follow up with you on a couple of points that you have made. You mentioned the moratorium that was imposed by.
Could you speak a little louder? I'm sorry.
Sure, that's okay. Can you hear? Is this better?
That's better.
Okay.
Thank you.
So in your testimony, you mentioned the moratorium that was imposed by the Department of Environmental Quality, the Division of Water Resources in 2021. Are you aware of, or do you have any information about any of the events that led up to the imposition of the moratorium?
No, I did not. We were blindsided.
Okay.
And we did not do it. Shall I continue or not?
Yes, you may continue.
Okay. The letter was written August the 25th, imposing the moratorium on October 13th. I did not find out on behalf of the association until October 26th, when I received a call from Donna Creve, who at that time was the Dare County planning officer. She asked me if I had heard about the moratorium. I said, what moratorium? She said, the moratorium has been placed on the sewer plant. I said, no. She said, I'm hitting the send key right now. read it, and call me back. And as I said, we were totally blindsided. I mean, I spent the next few days just grasping at straws, calling people, you know, Mr. Tankard, anybody that I could get information from. This was incredible and put a total halt to many, many owners that I personally knew were in the process of getting ready to put their submissions into the Architecture Review Committee to get a rubber stamp to take it to the building inspector's office for building permits. So I was on the phone for days.
Okay. In your testimony, you also mentioned that you have been in frequent communications with the operator, the contract operator of the system. Can you tell us who the contract operator is?
Well, I speak with Michelle Farr
Okay.
and David Farr. They are the providers of the sewer operations at the plant.
And can you tell me what you have learned in your conversations with Mr. and Mrs. Farr?
Learned that certain things were not working, they were broken, or they needed new filters. There was not any capital to be spent, that they were doing everything they could to treat the waste as best they could without being able to order new parts and have adequate replacements to continue to run the plant in the manner it should be run. We never spoke about, I feel rather ignorant, but we never spoke about notices of violations. I never heard those words until this moratorium happened.
Okay. Did the Farrs express any concerns to you about the plant, the performance of the plant, other than the financial concerns that they appear to have expressed to you? Did they indicate that there could be any problems with the plant?
As far as serving the current customers, we did not discuss problems in that area other than things that might happen if there was a grease buildup at the shopping center, or it was just run-of-the-mill talk about this is broken, we're hoping Ray will order this pump needs to be rebuilt, and now this other pump needs to be rebuilt, and we're hoping to get that done in the not too distant future. But everything depended on Mr. Hollowell.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you, Ms. Weston. Questions? Just checking in. All right. Questions on any of the questions I've asked?
No questions.
Ms. Weston, are the Farrs here by any chance?
They are. And I can just further say that these people have gone out on a limb using every single remedy, simple remedy known to man, including, chlorine bleach and other things to try to keep this plant going and viable and treating what was coming into it with no money to be had. So
Why don't you identify who is here over your right shoulder there on the front row?
Michelle Farr and David Farr.
And the other gentleman? And the other
I'm
gentleman?
sorry, and Rick Bartow. Rick is also on the board, and he has known Ray for 20 years. Yep, at least, and lives in Kinnakeet Shores.
No more, correct?
Okay. All right. Thank you, Ms. Weston. I believe there's nothing further for you, so you may step down. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
All right. All right, Ms. Culpepper.
The public staff calls Charles Junis.
Actually, Mr. Finley, do you want to move in your exhibit?
Be happy to do that. Now we move the introduction of Homeowners Association Exhibit 1.
All right. And just any objections, Ms. Culpepper?
No.
All right. Motion is allowed. All right, Mr. Junis, right hand up. Do you swear testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
All right, thank you.
Please state your name.
Charles Junis,
Where do you work?
Public Staff for the North Carolina Utility Commission,
What is your business address?
430 North Salisbury Street, Raleigh, North Carolina.
What is your job title?
Director of the Public Staff, Water, Sewer, and Telephone Division.
How long have you been in that position?
Approximately 6 months.
What are your duties?
I have management responsibilities of the Water, Sewer, and Telephone Division. I'm responsible for analyzing filings, testimony, exhibits, and other data presented by parties before the commission. I evaluate the operation of regulated water and sewer utilities, including expenses, capital spending, and compliance with applicable regulations. My duties also include preparing testimony regarding my investigation activities and making recommendations to this commission.
Please describe your education and work experience.
Yes, I graduated from North Carolina State University, earning a Bachelor of Science degree in civil engineering in May 2011. I am a licensed professional engineer in North Carolina since December of 2015. I have over 11 years of water and wastewater engineering experience, and since joining the public staff in April of 2013, I've worked on general rate cases, new franchise and transfer applications, emergency operations proceedings, customer complaints, rulemakings, and other aspects of utility regulation. More specifically, I have assisted in the investigation and drafting of petitions and/or testified in the Webb Creek, docket number W-864 sub 11, Riverbend Estates, docket number W-390 sub 13, and Mountain Air, docket number 1148 sub 20, emergency operator proceedings. Prior to joining the public staff, I worked for Farnsworth Group, an engineering and architectural consulting firm. Through this education and experience, I've gained considerable knowledge of relevant engineering and construction principles and utility operations, maintenance, and capital planning.
Do you believe that your testimony will be helpful in assisting the commission understand the facts of these cases?
Yes, I do.
Chair Mitchell, at this time, the public staff tenders Mr. Junis as an expert in the field of utility operations and related regulatory matters.
All right, thank you, Ms. Culpepper.
Mr. Junis, how did you become aware of the moratorium for the Kinnakeet Shores sewer system?
In late October 2021, I had separate phone conversations with Eddie Goodrich, prospective customer of Outer Banks Kinniket Associates LLC, and Pat Weston, president of Greater Kinnakeet Shores Homeowners, Inc., about the moratorium.
How did you conduct your investigation?
Upon becoming aware of the issues at Kinnakeet Shores, I compiled information, including additional communication with customers and prospective customers, contacting and meeting with North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, Division of Water Resources staff, culling DEQ's Laserfish database, and company dockets. Ms. Weston and subsequently Mr. Ain filed formal complaints. The public staff monitored the complaint proceedings and continued to compile information. Sometime after the complainants requested a hearing, the public staff, including Ms. Culpepper and myself, contemplated a motion to appoint an emergency operator, including contacting potential emergency operators and drafting a petition to appoint an emergency operator. Then this very hearing was scheduled.
Have you personally visited the Kinnakeet Shores sewer system?
Yes, I have.
When did you conduct this site visit?
This Tuesday, July 19th.
Who was present during the site visit?
From DEQ's Washington Regional Office, Robert Tankert, Assistant Regional Supervisor, Robert Bullock, Environmental Specialist, and Sarah Toppin, Environmental Specialist. And from Albemarle Environmental, Inc., David and Michelle Farr, the contract operators.
Did you take photographs during your site visit?
Yes, I did.
What did you take photographs of?
While accompanying DEQ on their compliance inspection, I took photographs of key components of the Kinnakeet Shores wastewater treatment plant and collection system.
What documentation was produced based on your site visit?
I prepared a PowerPoint presentation of the site visit. The presentation incorporates the photographs that I took. In addition, DEQ completed a compliance inspection report.
Are you
Oh,
prepared?
I'm sorry. I would like to add, I am prepared to provide a narrative account along with a PowerPoint of the inspection.
Do the photographs incorporated into the site visit PowerPoint presentation accurately represent what you observed during the site visit?
Yes, as the saying goes, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And I think everyone here today would be appreciative, especially the court reporter, if we saved several thousand words from being spoken today. However, DEQ staff and I made additional observations that is important context that I can provide.
Chair Mitchell, at this time, we request that Mr. Junis be allowed to present the PowerPoint of the site inspection, which has been pre-marked for identification as Public Staff Junis Direct Exhibit 1, which we provided paper copies of, and then also provide testimony describing the inspection.
All right, you may proceed.
Just giving it a second to get set up. All right.
Please proceed.
So pictured here is the Kinnakeet Shores wastewater treatment plant. It's the building in the top left-hand corner. The inspection, as previously stated, was conducted this past Tuesday from the Washington Regional Office, Robert Tankert, Robert Bullock, and Sarah Toppin, myself, and then the contract operators, David Farr and Michelle Farr. The Kinnakeet Shores wastewater treatment plant, as stated, the permit number is WQ 0002284. It is permitted for 350,000 gallons per day and is a reclaimed water generation and non-conjunctive reclaimed water utilization system. And what you have pictured there in the background is one of the tanks. On this page is a plant diagram that I prepared in consultation with DEQ staff. And in the background is the picture of the tank that it is describing. So this is an aerial perspective of that tankage. And you can, oh, this actually works. If you would draw a horizontal line crossing basically from Equalization Basin all the way through External Clarifier, you can assume that there is a catwalk going across that tankage that we proceeded across. And then there's actually a circular catwalk that goes around the internal clarifier. So from sort of left and moving clockwise, you have the Equalization Basin, let me back up. There's sort of two trains of treatment here, 175,000 gallons each. And so flow can either go to either of the anoxic basins at the top or bottom, and then proceed to the aeration basins, and then to the clarifiers. So now we'll start at the sort of head of the plant where the influent comes into the plant. So the far right pipe in the picture to the left is the influent line. So you can assume, all right, you have the collection system, all that collection system eventually comes through that pipe and into the plant. Then it goes up into the manual bar screen. So that's the picture to the right. That flow would come through the pipe at the top of the picture, travel through the bar screen to try to take out as many solids, debris, large foreign objects, essentially, that can make their way into a wastewater collection treatment plant. You can see sort of the condition of just generally the plant, the cleanliness, and the deterioration. On this page is the flow equalization basin. So from the manual bar screen, the flow goes into the flow equalization basin that is 140,000 gallons. It's aerated, and it should have 2 submersible transfer pumps. Those transfer pumps pump the flow from the EQ basin into the splitter box and then the aeration basins. As you can see in these pictures, the EQ basin has considerable solids at the top, sort of floating in these basins. That is not ideal. That can impede proper treatment. You'll also notice that the EQ basin's intention is to regulate flow. You'll have I&I events, you'll have storms, you'll have high usage, and sometimes that can overwhelm a plant's capacity. So the EQ is intended to sort of be a capture point, and then they can regulate the flow that goes through the rest of the plant because you need proper retention time and treatment. This plant, as you'll see in both pictures, the EQ basin is being kept at a very low level. That exposed the tank walls to air, which promotes corrosion. So it's actually not good for the long-term health of this facility to have that level that low. It would be one thing if you knew a storm was coming and wanted to prepare for that, to pump that tankage down. But for everyday operations, this is far from ideal. This page, you have the flow splitter box. So like I said, you go from the EQ basin, it should be pumped into this splitter box. Unfortunately, that is not used because essentially half this plant is offline. It is not being utilized for its purpose. Again, I would note the deterioration of that structure. Next, you have the anoxic tanks. So again, from the perspective of that diagram, you have 2 paths, 2 sides of the plant to go. You have an anoxic basin sort of to your right from the catwalk and to the left. And so this is an attempt to provide that perspective. On the left-hand picture, you will see that anoxic basin or tank is not being utilized for treatment. Currently, that anoxic tank is essentially a holding tank for sludge. And then on the right-hand side, you will see the anoxic tank in current operation. Again, a significant amount of solids at the top of that tank, which is not would not be representative of ideal normal operations. The coarse bubble aeration basin. This is again on the right-hand side of the plant. You have essentially a 50,000 gallon and then a 125,000 gallon tankage that was phased for a total of 175,000 gallons for that side of the plant. It is in active use. You can see some level of bubbles and aeration. However, it is probably not at the design level, as will be talked about later. Oops, didn't mean to jump that far. The picture on the left is the other side of the plant with the aeration basin. Again, this is not being utilized for treatment. It is functioning as storage and has been used for storage for approximately the past 10 years. The extent of Albemarle Environmental's tenure as contract operator of the system. Then on the right, you have the internal clarifier. So from the aeration basins, the flow of the plant is supposed to go to the clarifiers for treatment. The clarifiers are supposed to function as sort of a settling tank. And there is a sweeping arm both at the top and bottom of that tank that would sweep away solids and push solids through the plant. So those solids would then be moved to the digester and potentially cycled back through the plant. That clarifier, again, as you can see, is at a very low level, and that's because it's not operating. The sweep arms don't function. And so under normal circumstances, that tank should be full of liquid waste. And the weirs down there at the bottom of the page, the flow should be going over those weirs into that trough and move to the next stage of treatment. The next page is the external clarifier. So again, you have that first initial tankage circular that has an internal clarifier and then the other components around it. But then you have a separate tank that is the second or external clarifier, as it's referred to. This is just over 31,000 gallons. It also is currently not functioning as intended and has not functioned as intended for some time now and has been documented repeatedly by DEQ. Deterioration of the interior of the tank. Again, that level is not high enough for flow to go over the weir and proceed to the next stage of treatment. You have a substantial amount of solids at the top. And while on our site visit, the operator used a device called a sludge judge that was dipped into that tankage to take a sample of how much solids or sludge is at the bottom of that tank. And there was nearly 3 feet of sludge at the bottom of this tank. That, again, any solids at the bottom of a clarifier would be pushed by that bottom sweep arm into the digester. Unfortunately, with that not functioning, you're just building up sludge that would eventually have to be pumped out. I'm going to pause right there, and I just want to sort of connect some dots here with the document that was entered into the record, the complaint and motion for injunctive relief. You would note on page 28 of that document, which towards the top, there's an item 75 and then a heading prayer for relief. And as you go down in that document, item 2BI is the repair and replacement of all broken, malfunctioning, or otherwise non-operational mechanical elements of the treatment system, including but not limited to 1, clarifiers. As you've seen from the pictures and the description I've given from my account of the inspection, the clarifiers are not functional. The aeration tank, well, I haven't gotten there yet. So I just wanted to connect that dot, and there are more aspects here that we'll pull together as we continue through my presentation. But have that handy because we're going to flip back and forth. Gearbox assembly. I'm going to send you all for another trip in the documents. You will recall, number one, there was letters to DEQ in response to NOVs, and then there was a letter submitted by Mr. Hollowell dated May 27th, 2022, that laid out sort of going to say Mr. Hollowell is a writer of fiction in the genre of fantasy when he talks about what will happen with his plant. And it's repeated numerous times of this will happen and then it doesn't. And it strings along both the regulators, his operators, and this community repeatedly. He refers to sort of a magic part, this gear that they spent money, waited for. That's what's pictured here is the gearbox assembly, and specifically sort of that sprocket and cog at the top of the picture on the left. It's our understanding from the operator that that part was delivered, installed, and subsequently this device broke yet again. So perhaps for a couple of days at most, the clarifier sweep arm functioned.
Mr. Junis, can I ask you one question? The letter you were talking about dated May 27th, 2022, was that filed with the chief clerk on June 14th?
Yes, ma'am.
2022? Okay, I just wanted to clarify.
So I just want to draw that parallel because we've seen numerous writings from Mr. Hollowell that say something's going to happen, and then subsequently, over time, those things do not end up happening. And I will just note that letter also goes through a string of events that would supposedly happen within about 30 to 45 days. And I would note that this inspection that we went on was July 19th, approximately 50 some odd days after this letter. None of this had come to fruition. Yes, the gear showed up, but it broke and would have only gotten one clarifier potentially to semi-function. There was no effort to pump sludge. There was no efforts to move forward with repairs to the filter. No efforts to fix the turbidity meter. All the subsequent actions, there was no progress and no evidence upon the site visit that those things occurred. All right, back to the presentation. I apologize for jumping around, but I think it's important to sort of connect the dots here, what's in the record and in the evidence being submitted by the parties. This is the tertiary filter. So from the clarifiers, that what should be top water and relatively clear should go through this tertiary filter with a traveling bridge. It's basically a sand filter. Unfortunately, as you can see in the picture, it has what is sludge, to call it nicely. This whole structure is bypassed. It's not attempted to be used. It does not function properly. And you will note in the bottom left-hand of the bottom left-hand picture, there are a couple of chemical feed pumps that are supposed to be the chlorine disinfection system. That was not functional when we were on site. The next pictures on the left is the bypass piping of the tertiary filter. So that is the backside of the external clarifier where the waste is going. And then you saw was sitting with substantial solids both at the top and bottom of that tankage. So there are pumps set in that external clarifier, and those pump down those lines to some PVC pipe that runs along the wall of the building and then enters at the top left of the right-hand picture. If you see those PVC pipes coming in into that basin, which was formerly the UV disinfection basin, but the disinfection system had fallen into disrepair, and the permit was modified to include a chlorine and dechlor system. Again, the lines at the bottom right of the right-hand picture is the dechlor chemical feed not in use. And we were told by the operator upon the site visit that they were currently using chlorine tabs in that structure. I will tell you, it was my account and the account of the DEQ inspectors that we did not visually see any chlorine tabs in that structure. But there was a bucket nearby. Another, all right, I'm going to continue. The on-site backup generator, which is pictured in the left-hand side, is not functional. This piece of equipment dating back to the public staff's report that was filed in May of 2013, they have not had a functioning backup generator.
Mr. Junis, can I ask you, was that filed in docket number W-1125 sub 4, the report you're talking about?
Yes, ma'am. That was actually the only noted deficiency at the time by the public staff's report. I was not privy to that report. I didn't work on it. I had only recently joined the public staff at that time, but I have reviewed that report, and there has been considerable changes in the circumstances since then. So why is the generator a problem? If you don't have backup generation, let's say during a storm that has, now normally this community is evacuated or is not there during a storm event, but you have to deal with I&I or you are subject to flooding both the collection system and the plant if you do not have power. They don't have backup power. And outages can be weeks, even months long at the Outer Banks. And this has been a known issue for a long time. Another item where Mr. Hollowell has promised action, suggested costs, and nothing's been done. On the right-hand side is the intended blowers for this plant. You have a string of 3 blowers, all of which are supposed to be 3,000 cubic feet per minute. The farthest one does not have a motor. You'll notice a void right there. There's no motor, so that one's not working. The middle one, which has a number 2 under it, that one was tried to be turned on while we were on site, and sparks and smoke shot out of it. That one doesn't work. And then the third didn't do anything. That one doesn't work. The only source of aeration to this site is the tiny little blower on the left, which has a capacity of about less than 1/10 of just one of the intended blowers on this plant. And its airflow is being diverted between the EQ basin, which is its intended purpose, and the aeration basin. So again, you can't get proper treatment without adhering to the approved design components. And so you're just not getting enough air to promote that bacteria and proper treatment. The building in general was probably in the best condition out of any of the components, and even that would be considered to be in relatively poor condition. You have in the left-hand picture structural damage. That's a horizontal support at the top of the building that has fallen and is just hanging there. That beam is supposed to go straight across, just like the rest of them that are subsequently below. And then the roof line is an item that has been repeatedly identified by DEQ, but is, I would say, the least of priorities in the grand scheme of the issues at this plant. But essentially they have an open skylight running down the middle of this plant. So you can understand that's letting in the salt air, that's letting in moisture and rain events, and you're starting to see corrosion in the structural steel at that ridge. So at this point, I'm again going to jump back into the injunctive relief just to correlate those items. So page 28 of the exhibit submitted by the HOA. So we've now seen the tertiary filter, item I'm sorry, 2BI3, not functional, being bypassed. You have the aeration tank blowers, item 4, not functional. Some are missing. You have the backup generator, not functioning, and probably it can't be repaired, likely needs replaced. A number of the pumps, the waste return pumps, many are missing or not functioning. Item 2II, repair the disinfection system. That's a problem. It's not operating. It's not functional given the current layout of the plant and how it's being bypassed. You have then item III, remove solids from clarifier and sludge holding tank and dispose of properly. That will likely be hundreds of thousands of dollars just to pump out all of that waste. That is a significant problem. Now we will move on to the next pictures. On the left-hand side, you have the 5-day upset pond, which is a lined 3 million gallon structure. And on the right-hand side, you have the storage/infiltration pond, which is unlined and over 5 million gallons. Here's the problem with this. Currently, despite not meeting effluent limits, despite bypassing the plant and not having treated wastewater, the flow is not going to the 5-day upset pond. The flow is going directly into the unlined infiltration pond. That will lead over time to the accumulation of solids. You are looking at significant leaching of contaminants from the waste. You also have a pond just on the other side of that line of trees on the right-hand side and a small sort of berm. There's a pond that houses are adjacent to. There is a tent and kayaks literally on that water when I was there. So there are people using an adjacent pond that is most definitely hydraulically connected to the pond that essentially raw, untreated wastewater is going to. So not only do you have an environmental hazard, you have a potential health hazard here. As I said, you bypass the tertiary filter, you're sending waste from that external clarifier. You saw the solids, you saw that it was not clear. And that is all going to that storage infiltration pond. And that is all non-compliant with their permit. Here's a picture on the left-hand side of the irrigation pump. That is not functional. They are not using the irrigation system. But that is one way to dispose of effluent on this system. You have irrigation piping. This is just some of the irrigation. That's a drip irrigation system that's around the plant. Doesn't look like that's getting much moisture. I would say that is an arid environment. Very dry, not utilized. And then the irrigation system throughout the community that's supposed to cover 16 acres is not functional. Hasn't been used, even according to Mr. Hollowell, for over 12 years. Again, that is not how this system was designed. It's not how it's supposed to work. So just to tie this back to our, or to the DEQ and the DOJ's prayer for relief, you have repair and replace the irrigation pumps and irrigation system, repair and replace the turbidity meter and flow meter, calibrate those. None of that has happened. The turbidity meter was reading 3.9, which is supposedly compliant. It has been reading 3.9 from both the operator and DEQ staff for ages. So that is, it's not compliant. You're not getting an accurate measurement because there's no possible way. The turbidity would be a magnitude of 10 or more if you were getting an actual reading based on the clarity of that wastewater. The collection system. So there are two main pump stations on the system. You have Lakeside and Dory. The picture on the left is Lakeside lift station. I would note the grease and foreign debris in that pump station. That can lead to damage or blockage of the lines and or pumps. And again, will be counterproductive for the wastewater treatment plant. If you're sending that grease, it's going to build up in the lines. It's going to build up in the plant. It's going to damage components. It needs to be addressed. And that also previews the conversation that we had with the operator that this system has numerous pump stations on it. And I would just like to reference, this is Exhibit A of the motion, the complaint in motion, which is page 32 of the PDF. And if you go all the way to actually page 36 of that document, you will see that this has at least permitted or plan approval, 13 simplex pump stations and 32 duplex. From the operator, most, if not all of those duplex pump stations only have one pump. That's not compliant. It will lead to reliability issues. And that's why I have this picture on the right-hand side. Those are portable sump pumps that the operators use. So they'll get an alarm or a call from homeowners. This pump station's out of service. They don't have that backup pump in the duplex. The duplex pump stations, those pumps are supposed to alternate operation as they're kicked on. And that redundancy provides reliability of service. They run out, throw one of these sump pumps in, and make do in the short term until they can get either that pump repaired or a possible replacement, but fewer and fewer replacements as time has gone on. I think that concludes the presentations from the inspection.
What did you conclude from the site visit?
The wastewater treatment plant and collection system are in very poor condition and have suffered from substantial deferred maintenance, repair, and replacement.
So you had reviewed a number of documents, including what was entered, what is identified as HOA Exhibit Number 1. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
What is your opinion regarding the allegations and the relief sought?
So I believe the allegations are substantiated and the relief sought is necessary and appropriate. As we've walked through, those conditions have not changed and have possibly worsened since that document was compiled.
In your opinion, does OBKA have the technical, managerial, and financial capacity to become compliant?
No, this has become clear when you contrast the public staff report from May 2013 filed in docket number W-1125 sub 4 to the condition of the system and the utility's finances now. This is a company that is delinquent on its 2020 annual report and has shown both leading up to that 2013 report and in subsequent annual reports that we do have of considerable losses. And Mr. Hollowell, in response to DEQ regarding the NOVs, has consistently said that he does not have the funding. At one point, he said he had funding from elsewhere, but there's been no actual evidence that there has been an influx of funding from elsewhere.
And his correspondence with DEQ, those are exhibits too.
Yes, ma'am.
What did you conclude regarding your investigation?
I conclude that a real emergency regarding the provision of adequate, safe, and reliable sewer utility service exists at Kinnakeet Shores, necessitating the appointment of an emergency operator. Both North Carolina General Statutes Sections 62-116B and 62-118B define an emergency as quote, the imminent danger of losing adequate water or sewer utility service or the actual loss thereof, close quote. There has been an actual loss of adequate sewer utility service at Kinnakeet Shores. It may not be in the form of that a customer can flush their toilet, that the system still is receiving wastewater, but it is not being treated. The wastewater is collected and pumped into the wastewater treatment plant, is not properly treated, and has not and would not meet permit limits for effluent disposal. DEQ has determined that the wastewater treatment plant and collection system are not compliant.
What company did you contact regarding their willingness to serve as an emergency operator?
Public staff has discussed with Carolina Water Service, Inc. of North Carolina, also referred to as CWSNC, their willingness to become the emergency operator of the Kinnakeet Shores wastewater treatment plant and collection system.
How did CWSNC respond regarding the public staff's inquiry?
CWSNC has performed preliminary due diligence, is familiar with the Outer Banks system, and has informed the public staff it is willing to become emergency operator of the utility system as soon as is reasonably possible, subject to certain conditions that are required to ensure that CWSNC's ratepayers and shareholders do not assume financial responsibility for the situation created by Outer Banks Kinnakeet Associates.
What are the qualifications for CWSNC to perform the service of emergency operator?
CWSNC was appointed emergency operator by order issued October 1st, 2014 in docket number W408 sub 9 and is currently serving as emergency operator at the 3 Cross Street Development Company water utility systems in Ashe County. CWSNC is currently serving as the emergency operator by order issued January 31, 1997 and September 4th, 1998 in docket numbers W796 sub 12 for the Hard Scrabble Plantation wastewater utility system in Durham County and the River Oaks wastewater utility system in Wake County. CWSNC was also appointed emergency operator for the Riverbend Estates water utility system in Macon County by order issued May 16th, 2017 in docket number W390 sub 13 and served as emergency operator until the commission approved the transfer of the Riverbend Estates water system to CWSNC by order issued May 16th, 2019 in docket number W354 sub 358. Furthermore, by order issued May 4th, 2021 in docket number W1128 sub 20, CWSNC was appointed as emergency operator of the Mountain Air water and wastewater utility system in Yancey County and is currently serving as emergency operator.
What is your opinion as to CWSNC's qualifications to provide emergency operator services?
The public staff believes that CWSNC is well qualified to perform the duties of emergency operator.
What facilities does CWSNC own and operate in the coastal region?
CWSNC owns and operates 10 wastewater treatment plants and collection systems in the coastal region, the closest being the village of Nags Head, which is approximately 40 miles away from the Kinnakeet shore system.
How much do you think the improvements will cost to get this system back into compliance?
A significant amount. A professionally managed utility would need to be on site, operate the system, and triage all major components. The relief sought by DEQ is a good starting point. The hope is that the building and tankage could be rehabilitated, but a significant portion of the mechanical and electrical equipment will need to be replaced. Then there is what lies beneath. For example, there is likely solids in the storage infiltration pond, and the irrigation system piping hasn't been used in over a decade.
What is your recommendation to the commission regarding the appointment of CWS-NC to serve as the emergency operator for the OBKA system?
CWS-NC should be appointed emergency operator today and effective as soon as reasonably feasible for CWS-NC.
To your knowledge, does OBKA have bond posted with the commission?
Yes.
Do you know how much approximately?
Yes, approximately $110,000.
What is your understanding of the statutory provisions regarding bond and the appointment of emergency operator?
Just give me 1 second. I want to flip to that statute. So GS 62-110.3 D, the appointment of an emergency operator either by the Superior Court in accordance with GS 62-118B or by the commission with the consent of the owner or operator operates to forfeit the bond required by this section. So there are sort of two paths. It's GS 62-116B, where the commission exercises its authority subject to consent from the utility, which I think the memorandum filed by Mr. Hollowell this morning is informative, that he indicated that it was his intention to recommend that the commission take that bond to be utilized to make improvements on the system. At that point, he was originally contemplating Currituck Water and Sewer Company. His mind has apparently changed in that memorandum, and he now contemplates a similar action potentially with CWS-NC. I think it needs to be clarified whether he has truly consented, but if so, that bond monies should be immediately taken by the commission and utilized to offset costs for necessary improvements to reestablish the system's environmental compliance.
Do you have any additional recommendations?
I think that it is fully within the commission's powers under GS 62-310 to issue penalties to the system. They are non-compliant not only with environmental regulations, which is required under the commission's rules, but have also strayed in compliance with commission's orders. They, again, are delinquent on its annual report for 2020. And I think the commission should fully exercise those powers to issue penalties.
Mr. Junis is available for cross-examination and commission questions.
All right, thank you, Ms. Culpepper. Mr. Finley.
Mr. Junis, thank you. The first request of the Homeowners Association, as was read earlier today by Ms. Weston, is that the commission, as expeditiously as possible, require a comprehensive due diligence investigation into OBKA's suitability to own and operate the wastewater treatment and collection system in compliance with the public interest. Do you view the investigation that you have conducted recently, the pictures you have taken and the coordination you've done with the operators and the environmental regulators to meet that requirement of comprehensive due diligence investigation?
I believe that it is a proper due diligence inspection. It depends on your definition of comprehensive. I think it was significant and substantive. But to call it comprehensive, there's more work to be done here. There are significant concerns about ownership and control. There are other questions about their financial viability that could only worsen this situation. But I would say based on our findings at this point, they are not suitable for ownership and operation of the system.
And if the commission were to order right away the appointment of an emergency operator, how soon could that emergency operator move on to the system and start taking over?
I can only speculate on that, but in prior discussions, I think within, a week or two that could be facilitated, possibly sooner, but that conversation needs to be had directly with Carolina Water.
And when the commission appoints an emergency operator in a situation such as this, assuming that the activities taken are reasonable and prudent, for the most part, the emergency operator is recompensed for whatever its expenses and costs are in operating the system as
Yeah.
an emergency operator.
Yes, sir.
Right. Now, Mr. Eunice, you mentioned twice public staff's investigation report in docket number 1125 sub 4, did you not?
Yes, sir.
May I approach?
I do have a copy. Yes, sir.
Eunice cross-examination.
All right. Document will be identified as HOA Junus Cross Exhibit 1.
Those are all the questions that I have of Mr. Junis, and I would move at the appropriate time that exhibit be received into evidence.
Hearing no objection, motion is allowed. All right, let me check in with my court reporter. Doing okay. We keep going. Okay, understood. All right, questions from commissioners. Commissioner Duffley.
Good morning, Mr. Junis. Is this on? Okay. I have one question about the storage infiltration pond and your testimony regarding that pond. And what I'd like to know is whether the Washington Regional Office of DEQ has notified the community that is using the pond that may be connected with this pond that has non-properly treated waste.
So it's my understanding a conversation was had with the county health department, and some efforts in the past have been made to inform that community and to advise them not to use that. But I don't have an authoritative document on hand that can identify the timing and exactly how that was communicated.
Okay, thank you.
But I would be happy to attempt to find a document and provide it as a late filed exhibit.
That would be helpful if you could reach out to Robert Tankard, Robert Bullock, and Sandra Topin to see if there's been official notification to that community. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Hughes.
Just one really quick clarification. You had mentioned that you had seen a bucket, and I just want to ask if that was a bucket that was labeled chlorine tablets or had chlorine tablets in it.
So Mr. Tankard noted the bucket of chlorine tabs. I don't believe that I think it was lidded. So it was identified as chlorine tabs. I don't know if it had any in it. And like I said, we did not see any personally in that, the UV structure, the disinfection chamber.
Okay. You showed in your photos quite a bit of electric equipment, blowers, pumps that appear to rely on a significant amount of energy if they were operated. Would it be indicative of the operation of the facility in the past if one looked at the electric bill for this facility to see whether those equipment had operated?
You would likely see a correlation between energy use and the functionality of the plant, especially those blowers. There's supposed to be actually ventilation fans in that building. There's three, well, supposed to be three. One was completely gone, and the other two were rusted to the point where they're completely non-functional. So yes, you should see a correlation, especially then all the pumps, the traveling bridge filter, at the time when you had UV disinfection, all of those would be energy users and should correlate to their functionality.
So it would be possible to at least infer whether the equipment was ever running. The last question about the question of adequate service. I think you had made a mention about sort of distinguishing between the service related to at a consumer's premises and then the entire chain. Would it be your opinion that when a consumer pays pays for wastewater service, that service would include the treatment beyond just essentially simply flushing the toilet and having it go away?
Yes, I absolutely agree with that. And that's why I concluded that there is a real emergency, that despite, service in the concept of most customers just being flushing a toilet still existing, that full treatment and comprehensive service does not exist. Because those customers are customers of this utility that by not properly treating has created significant liabilities and potential future costs that I'm sure they would have the intention of attempting to recover from customers, but we would absolutely oppose.
Okay, no further questions.
All right, Mr. Junis, thank you for your testimony today. Is the opinion of the public staff that there's an immediate and pressing need for the commission to take action here?
Absolutely.
Okay. You testified as to your personal experience in investigating and being involved with systems that were in emergency condition. Give us your sort of high-level impression of this system relative to other systems you've seen before or investigated before that have been in an emergency condition.
So in direct comparison to a wastewater treatment plant, Webb Creek comes to mind, and I would say that this is as bad, if not worse, than Webb Creek. I know we had a brief moment of comedy when I suggested that I had Mr. Grantmeyer walk ahead of me at Webb Creek because of the deterioration of the catwalk. There were comparable concerns here. Just from the safety of the inspectors to be on site. While the aluminum grating was in good condition, the structural steel below that, which actually holds it up, had deteriorated significantly. You definitely kind of wanted to watch where you were stepping, just in case. Mr. Tankard actually had an experience where he fell through such walkway and fell into a plant. So it is a health concern for the operators and inspectors. And again, condition of the plant, multiple components are not functioning at all. The plant is not providing treatment to any significant degree. It's not compliant with its effluent standards. It's not compliant with its permit, not only the treatment plant, but the collection system too. So this draws parallels, and like I said, if I had to do like an item by item, it's probably worse than Webb Creek.
Okay. Commission has a couple of late filed exhibits it would like to request. First, copy of the sewer moratorium documentation issued by DEQ, Division of Water Resources, late last year. Second, we want to see, go
I
ahead.
hate to interrupt you, but that moratorium notification is Exhibit K to the complaint and motion for adjunctive
Okay,
relief.
okay, perfect. So I'll retract that request and, as noted by Mr. Junis, it's already in the record.
You ask and you will receive.
I like it. I like it. All right. Mr. Junis, we're interested in the relevant permits for the treatment facility.
So again, Exhibit A is the collection system permit, and Exhibit B is the wastewater treatment and disposal system renewed permit. That's the most recent one.
Okay.
And I'm happy to get you previous versions if you so request.
All right. There's been issue noted by the commission staff as to the permit numbers for the treatment plant. So let me flip to Exhibit B here. So Exhibit B is permit number 2284, and we have seen reference to permit number 23934. I'd ask Public Staff Council to investigate permit number WQ 0023934. If you all can figure out what it is, would you please provide it as a late filed exhibit? Okay. One last request, and again, this request may be covered by what's already in the record, outstanding notices of violation issued to the utility. I see a number of NOVs.
There are more. There was another one issued, I guess that would have been Wednesday. So an NOV and civil penalty was issued on Wednesday regarding their March 2nd inspection. And then you would likely expect eventually another NOV and possible civil penalty stemming from our inspection on Tuesday.
Okay. To the extent that there are NOVs that have been issued that remain unaddressed or open matters with the DWR, please provide those as late filed exhibits. To the extent they're not attached to the document public staff introduced as evidence. Okay.
And you're referring to the HOA Exhibit 1.
That's right. Yeah. Yes, thank you for that correction. To be clear, HOA Direct Exhibit 1. Yeah. Like to make additional requests for late filed exhibit to the extent the public staff is able to audit the electric usage at the wastewater treatment plant. We'd like to see analysis of that usage.
Any expectation of how far back to go?
As far back as you can go. I don't
Okay.
know what the electric utility will be able to provide. Just one last question for purposes clarity of the record. Mr. Junis, has the public staff had an opportunity to communicate directly with Mr. Hollowell or his attorney or his counsel, to the extent that he has one, about the appointment of CWSNC as emergency operator?
So previous conversations with Mr. Hollowell directly, and then to my knowledge, conversations between council had been that he was not supportive of appointment of emergency operator. Like I said, seems to be a changing of opinion and facts here with the memorandum filed this morning that indicates otherwise, and that's the only piece in writing to my knowledge.
So is my understanding correct that the public staff was unaware that Mr. Hollowell was going to make that communication to the commission, the communication that appeared in the docket this morning?
Absolutely unaware. I mean, this has been a shifting sand leading up to this hearing of what was going to happen.
Okay. Okay. All right. Questions on commission's questions?
I don't have any questions. We do have a copy of DEQ's compliance inspection report for the site visit this week. If you would like that, I have copies, or we could file it as a late filed exhibit.
Do you have copies available right now? If you could, why don't you go ahead and distribute those, please, ma'am? Let's go ahead and mark this document.
I guess I don't really know how you want it marked. I don't know if it's,
Let's mark it as, well, let's just mark it as Junus Direct.
exhibit 2.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Junus Direct Exhibit 2. Any objection? Okay.
What's one? What is one? Unit one.
PowerPoint.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Junus, just looking at this document quickly, it's the compliance inspection report prepared.
I'm happy to provide some context regarding this document.
Okay, let me ask you a few questions just real quick for purposes of the record. So it's an inspection report dated July 19th, 2022, related to permit WQ 0002284. Type of inspection was a compliance evaluation.
Is that the question?
No, I don't have the question yet.
Okay, sorry.
Indicates primary inspector was Robert Tankard. Were you present with Mr. Tankard when he conducted this inspection?
Yes, I was.
Okay. And so you observed the same conditions and the same situation at the plant as Mr. Tankard?
Yes, I participated in all the conversations amongst Mr. Tankert, Mr. Bullock, and Ms. Toppin, along with David and Michelle Farr. I was alongside them or right behind them at every stage of the inspection.
And I note on page 2 of 6, down at the bottom, second to last paragraph, wastewater is being pumped into the wastewater treatment plant facility, and there is no treatment from the plant. Do you see that sentence?
Yes,
Do you agree with that observation?
yes.
Okay. Do you also agree with the following observations, that effluent will not meet permit limits,
Yes,
that the irrigation infiltration pond is loaded with algae and possibly solids,
yes,
and that not sure how long infiltration pond will work based on effluent going into pond?
yes.
Okay.
So just context there regarding the functionality of an infiltration pond. Those solids will basically clog or create a layer preventing the infiltration of that water into the ground. And so then you're going to see continued rising of that pond to the point of you either can't keep discharging into it or it could end up overflowing.
Okay. All right. Questions? Thank you, Mr. Junis. Questions, additional questions for Mr. Junis on? All right. Any questions on commission questions?
No questions.
Okay. All right. With that, Mr. Junis, you may step down. We've moved Junis Direct 2 into evidence.
I don't think we've moved
All right.
1 or 2.
All right, I'll take a motion.
I move that Public Staff Units Direct Exhibits 1 and 2 be admitted into evidence.
All right, hearing no objection, the motion will be allowed. Okay, we are, given that Mr. Ain is not here, we will conclude before we adjourn, though, and before I'm not going to call for post-hearing filings at this point in time. Stay tuned for further order of the commission. Thank you very much, everybody, for your participation today. We'll be adjourned. Let's go off the record, please.